the people, carry on infrastructure development, accountability in the management of the resources of the country, that those things are done by the government. And that the people, on the other hand, make sure that they always call on their government in a peaceful manner, that the government live us to its responsibility and mandate. Those are the requirements of the government that will ensure that democracy survives.
Wow, thank you so very much. Joe, you heard Commissioner Wheeler, the role of the government in not only maintaining, sustaining, but making the democracy to work, for the people. What's your take on his perspective there?
Absolutely, he's right. And all the definitions that he gave about democracy being, of the people, for the people, by the people is correct. And some other lexicon meanings will tell you in short that democracy is ruled by the people, meaning that power is inherent in the people. They make the decisions, they alter them when they feel it's necessary. So he's right about that. I like the part that he talked about democracy being endangered species. Talking about men and women with the fortitude, to make it work. It's true, especially from the African perspective, where our society is saturated with tropical cultures, with different cultures and traditions, and learning this concept that we call democracy. And I'm glad he talked about the role of the government in showing that it rules by the rule of law. It governs by the rule of law. So that takes us specifically to our question today, the role of the government. And so we want to be direct about what the situation is currently, given the fact that government has a significant role to play in the attainment of a democratic society in Liberia. How does he see the reality today with the role of the government? What's working, what's not working, as far as making democracy to work in the Liberian society?
Let me retrospect briefly, Joe. Thank you so much. 2004, we joined the Elections Commission. After Liberia progressed from the Taylor era, an era that many describe as an era of tyranny, we landed into the transitional period headed by Judy Bryant. At a particular time, we had the election was conducted in Liberia. Going to the specific, the technical aspects of the election, well, the 1997 election, there was only one photo on the card that was given to the voter registration card. In 2004, working with other compatriots at the commission, we indicated that if we are to embark start the methodology of election, embark on the use of an electoral system called the optical map recognition system, the OMR system, then we must make sure that there are two photos. Of course, there were views from the international community, but some individuals from the international community would feel that Liberia was a little country, a very small country, so you did not have to go through the idea of having two photographs. But we stood our ground as commissioners of the commission, Jimmy Freeman and myself, Liz Nelson, Francis Johnson, Allison, and so forth. And we had two photographs, one on the roll and one on the card. We progressed from there. The elections of 2005 was a claim to be a success. It was a successful election, brought Ellen Johnson Sirleaf to power. The Johnson administration, as much as everything was not perfect, but there was some semblance of democracy. There was tolerance of opposing views. The rule of law was being observed to a larger extent. And this is what it is, that particular process that took up to 2017. The election of 2017 that was conducted with a lot of doubts surrounding the process, a lot of substantial doubts surrounding the process. We landed with the CDC government. It is sad to say from the inception of the CDC government, we have observed over the months and the years that have passed that the fundamentals of democracy, the requirements, those ingredients that sustain a democratic system, respect for the rule of law and so forth, that have been rapidly eroded. Very little respect for the rule of law. Accountability is at the lowest level. And these are issues that we think have the propensity to take the country back into the dark ages, from where we came from to Taylor tyranny, to where we are. There is a responsibility now. There's a need and a requirement for men of fortitude, men who believe in the survival of a democratic system, to govern the resources in a peaceful manner, to stand up collectively, to ensure that our system of democracy that many have shared blood for, from the days of the 70s to the 80s, that a particular system that we have will be sustained and improved upon. So in a short, the problem we have today in the country, there's a departure from what little achievement that we left of the Senate government to today. There's a rapid erosion of the rule of law. There's a rapid erosion of accountability to a large extent. There's a rapid erosion of the selfless nature of the government, and the government being aware of its primary responsibility being the welfare of the people. This is a sad story of Liberia today. And this is where forces of democracy in a peaceful manner must govern our resources to stand up to ensure that Liberia does not return to the days of the dark ages.
Commissioner Witter, this is where people must stand and paraphrasing it to play their role so that we don't return to those dark days. How do we do that? Go ahead.
One of the media is through organization, like what you have done, the grassroots alternative movement, which is very good, conscientizing the people that in a civilized society, in a democratic society, we all gain. In a lawless society, we are all losers. Like the Center for Development and Election Management, what we are doing. When we left the commission, after I spent about 16 years at the commission, my colleagues and myself, Jimmy Fromwell, David Mayanga, Francis Johnson Allison, and so forth, we decided to organize ourselves to ensure that we work with other forces in other countries. Mainly Dr. Kwadwo Afarijan, former chairman of the Ghana Electoral Commission, Badru Chigondu, former chairman of the Electoral Commission of Uganda, to work with these forces, the individuals, so that we'll be able to build an institution that will ensure that the gains of our electoral system, the election being the ingredient, the main focus of sustaining a democratic system, that those gains are sustained and built upon. So organization, like what you have done through the grassroots alternative movement and what we are doing, those type of initiatives that require in order to govern our forces, resources, to strengthen civil society, to create awareness for the people, and for the people to stand up to ensure that their rights are not taken away in a peaceful manner.
Joe, anything you wish to add?
So Commissioner Witter spoke about, the erosion of the rule of law in general in Liberia during this time, and it's something worrisome. I like the question you asked about, how we can deal with this situation, and his response about, the emergence of democratic institutions, social justice groups, advocates, to talk about the issues. And I certainly agree that the competition of ideas is at the center of democracy, making sure that people's views matter in everything that's discussed, to happen in the interest of the people. But, the issue of press freedom, the issue of freedom of speech, the issue of curtailing corruption, making sure that we address the issue of nepotism in our country. Somebody will say that these are all part of the entrenched governance ecosystem of our country, and it's not just today's issue. We know that there was a transition somewhere in between, like you rightfully said, from 2005, we experienced for the first time, the establishment of democratic governance, and we saw some of those things open up under the Salif administration, and we did not see retribution of any significance. But again, like you said, it's slipping back, like going back to the dark days. We don't want to go back to that entrenched culture of people being freedom of speech,
lawlessness, Joe. Lawlessness.
Yes, lawlessness, everything. We don't want to go back to the arbitrariness, of every measure. Commissioner Witter, everybody has a role to play. The government role, I know we've emphasized its significance, but what if the government is not playing a role and the people continue to be innocent about these issues, seeing government differently from what you and I see it to be? Because the vast majority of our people see people in government to be doing favor to them. You know, Anthony and I have talked about this, and other pundits have talked about this a lot over the period, that the way our people see government is not the way we see it. They see government as a group of people doing them a favor, forgetting to know that the government is accountable to them. You know, how do we conscientize our people so that they get to understand that government does not comprise of individuals doing them favor. Government comprises of individuals whom they have commissioned, who the people have commissioned, and with a given responsibility, a defined responsibility to deliver upon such mandate. How can we make our people to understand? Because that's fundamental in making sure that the government changes its attitude. Because when the people begin to hold the government accountable, you know, then things can begin to change. But up to now, I'm not sure they are aware that they need to hold government accountable. I'm not sure they are aware that they have a role in the governance process that is very important to changing situations. So with your experience and your standing in the Liberian society, what do you think we need to do for the people to come to rise to this occasion?
Well, massive education has to be the way forward. Massive education, through vernaculars. We are even talking about community involvement, community activities to govern the people, to create awareness among the people. But we have to do that. And those in power have to realize that change is inevitable, as a winter constant throughout history, change. And realize that we all have to work together for the betterment of the society, because there is no way that any system that is outside of the rule of law can succeed. Because what you do at the end of the day is that you antagonize yourself to the people, and the change that may come, that may be in the interest of the collective of the larger society, may be a change that may be detrimental to you. And every human being, every conscious person should always remember that they should be on the better side of the chain that comes, not at the negative side. So what we are saying about with regard to creating the awareness is very important, but it can only be done through civic educational efforts for the people to know their responsibility. If you look at Ghana, there's a National Commission on Civic Education. In Liberia, we don't have that. Since there's no National Commission on Civic Education, and civics is no longer taught in our schools, it means civil society organizations like the Grassroots Alternative Movement, the Center for Development and Election Management, and other conscious groups, we have to mobilize resources from international
Commissioner Widow, sorry, I was going to stop you there, because that is exactly our second question, the role of civil society, you know, and coincidentally, you just jump into it, which makes it, you know, Asone, I was saying that I was going to interrupt, you know, a little bit, because that was our next question. Commissioner Widow already started, you know, running into it, the role of civil society, which is very good. And we really want you to take off some. We're listening to you, want to take off some time for you to talk about the role of civil society, because in all that we do in the enhancement of our democracy, we have always put civil society, you know, at the center as well. And I want you to do a little assessment of what the role of civil society has been, what it is now, and with all the things you're talking about, civic engagement and everything, what is it now, and what the prospects are.
Look, let me tell you, the prospects in Liberia is not encouraging. And there's a lot of work for us to do where the civil society is concerned. There's a lot of work that is required. And I want to say things the way I see it. Let's be very clear. We started with saying that democracy is an endangered species. If democracy is an endangered species, then there has to be individuals who are prepared to ensure that democracy survives. And power corrupts. It is easy to do what is wrong than to do what is right. That being the case, those who enter government usually forget They are consumed by the amenities of the state, the regalia that come with political power, and all these things. And they easily forget that there's a responsibility that they have in maintaining peace and tranquility and ensuring that development is there that cater to the welfare of the people. That being the case, civil society organizations have to be there to play the role of reminding the people, the government, of its responsibility to the people. This is where we are. If you look at that, if you look at in Liberia, there are a lot of civil society organizations, but there are many of them who are only pandering to the government because they say things that are in the interest of the government. They don't want to rock the boat because that is the only way they are able to get some resources to ensure that they continue to exist. We have seen that. When it comes to the point where civil society organizations are to take stand, like the situation in Lofa County concerning Brani J. Samuka, like the situation in Nima County in the December 8th election involving Ide Gonglo Ware. There are electoral civil society organizations that are mute on this issue. They lobby process, but when it comes to the point where they have to make critical statements regarding shortcomings of society, they have the propensity to take Liberia back to the dark days. They remain mute. Those type of civil society organizations are pseudo, and there are many in Liberia. They are confused with the real one. This is the challenge that we have. So when they talk about civil society organizations, many of them, but yeah. When they talk about civil society organizations,
are you saying that civil society needs reform?
Civil society has a lot of work to be done among them. There are a lot of them that are there that are in need, not real. They are stupid. They pander to the government. They are mute when it comes to the point of taking critical action, making critical statements that will correct the wrongs of society. And they only sing praises. They are more dangerous to the survival of civil society itself. The challenge we have is to identify those civil society organizations that are real, that are in the interest of the state and the country, and not for the personal interest, for selfish interest for them to benefit. This is the challenge we have where civil society is concerned. And I think we need to put a lot of effort. We need to organize in a way to ensure that resources that are available are channeled to civil society institutions that are real, that are there to ensure that the rights of society, the wrongs of society are corrected.
Thank you so very much, Commissioner Wheeler. And Joe, earlier you asked about how do we make our people, I'm not taking us back, how do we make our people to see that whatever the government does, it is what the people, have commissioned the government to do. But what we see is the people are seeing the government work as, like a favor to them. And I think that is dangerous. Now, to come talk about civil society, that group of the population that we know are institutions or should be institutions who understand this social contract that we talk about are themselves, pandering, showering praises on the government, selective, and not talking about issues, as Commissioner Widow said, that have the propensity to degenerate our democracy. I can just see how the picture is bleak. So, Commissioner Widow, you talk about civil society itself needs reform. And you even went further than saying, well, there are some that are genuine and there are some that are not. How do we tell which civil society institutions are genuine and which ones are not? That is the challenge we have. And you're talking about resources. These civil society institutions, from the little I know, some of them getting funding from outside. It said that government funding them, because government is not funding you. Then what is your fear for which you are tailoring your message in favor of the government instead of in favor of the people?
Well, there are civil society organizations in Liberia that receive funding from outside, from donor institutions outside of government. Mm-hmm. But if we talk about the United Nations Development Program, the UNDP, the UNDP usually give resources to local institutions that have good standing with the government. This is the issue that we have, that are in good book with the government. Because resources that come into the country under the management of the UNDP, most of the resources are allocated based on government's approval. That being the case, civil society institutions are critical to the government, that see the wrongs in society and stand up and issue statement and take action for the correction to be made for the benefit of the society. These civil society institutions are blacklisted by the government. So any funding that comes to the United Nations, that comes from the United Nations Development Program, that is to go to the particular institutions that are real, that take critical stand where government go wrong. There is usually a refusal from the government for resources to be sent by the UNDP. So in Liberia, what you have is that the United Nations Development Program in Liberia, I don't know whether that is the case in other countries, pander so much to the government. I work in the Elections Commission. I saw the process over the 16 years that I spent. I have seen the collaboration, the close collaboration between the government and the UNDP system in Liberia, that way to exclude critical, real civil society institutions from receiving resources. That is the problem. That being the case, most civil society organizations in Liberia that want to survive pander to the government in order for the government to approve whenever UNDP want to give resources to them. That is the problem we have in Liberia. I do not know whether that is the case in Ghana. I don't know whether the system in Kenya, but that is what is obtaining in Liberia.
And Joe, let me bring you in here, that is a very significant piece of information there. I mean, come to think about it, why were you in that, has money to better democracy in our country, will allow itself to get in this gimmick, right? And Joe, compare that with Radio Veritas during the time of, Michael Bakla Francis. Compare that with what's it Star Radio that was financed by, I think, the British government or so, and during the tyrannical regime of Charles Taylor. These institutions were propagating messages in the interest of the people that they didn't care about Charles Taylor because they were not getting funding from the government. This thing is serious, Joe.
Yeah, they didn't care about the consequences of despotism at the time. What they care about was securing the interests of the people, making sure that we have a society in which everyone has the opportunity to compete economically. Everyone was free based on what they said, the expression of their ideas, their views. That was the objective, making sure that they projected a positive society, an image that reflected the reality on the ground. That's what they focused on. And they were clear about the things they were doing because they knew it was just and fair. But the situation is different with some of these institutions. And I can tell you also, like Commissioner Widow said, from experience that many of these institutions partner with government to provide support for different projects, for democracy projects, for livelihood projects, and there are institutions in the society they work with for the implementation of these projects. And many of these institutions have to pander to the United Nations and to the government, to the United Nations organs. And because not all of them, some of the United Nations organs and to the government to ensure that they remain on the list to receive those grants, to ensure that their institutions are secure to work in such tyrannical environment, such hostile environment. That is where I agree to a large extent that you actually need people with courage in civil society to be able to speak truth, whether to the government or to these institutions that are providing these grants. Our society, the issue with making democracy work in Liberia is real. The whole process is really convoluted. You got people with different interests. You don't find many common objectives. And so it's making it very, very difficult. But notwithstanding, it is our responsibility, those of us who believe, those out there who believe that the best way to guarantee democracy in our country is the government to ensure or to lead by the rule of law, to make sure that the people are governed in a way that there is truth, there is reality about what needs to be done. So Commissioner Widow also said that pseudo civil society organizations in Liberia are responsible for the difficulties in guaranteeing a genuine democracy in Liberia. In short, that's what he was trying to say. And those organizations still exist. That tells us that it is a challenge for all of us because we have to deal with that situation. How do you change, you know, their program frameworks? How do you change their nature of commitment to doing the work that they are supposed to do, Anthony? That's the confusion. That's the difficult situation we find ourselves in. But again, I think with the rise of democratic institutions, civil society institutions, like he talked about SIDEM, like he talked about the grassroots alternative movement, like stern advocates, like people like Tiawan Gonglo and other people seeking justice, you know, beyond every measure. I think that's what we need to do consistently in the country to ensure that democracy thrives, because it's only when democracy thrives that our society gets better. You know,
if you look at the enrollment or the disbursement of funding to democratic activity to governance, there are a lot of resources available within the UN system in Liberia to strengthen democratic institutions, civil society institutions that are focused on working for democracy. Unfortunately, most of those fundings are misdirected to institutions that pander to the will of the government. This is a tragedy. Real institutions that the government know that these institutions are real, that these institutions cannot be bought, that these institutions are presided over by individuals who have a history of political struggle, that individuals who are committed to the state, who are patriotic and nationalistic, they are excluded from funding. That is an everyday thing. Seeing them is struggling with that as I speak to you. This is the problem we have. So at the end of the day, we only hear groups that the government want to see in the forefront because they are the ones that have the ability to receive funding. This is a problem we have in Liberia. Until that issue is dealt with, it's a very difficult. It requires men who are courageous, as Joe stated, to be in the vanguard for democratic struggle. Because being in the vanguard for democratic struggle in Liberia, it means you are associated with very difficult challenge, difficult time. That's why it is.
You are enemy.
This is the problem we have. So though the funding is coming from the donor community, but the government play a leading role in ensuring that UNDP direct the funding to those institutions that seem precious to the government. This is the challenge that we have.
So let me give a classic example, Anthony. Maybe this will be the last thing before we go to the next stuff. So Commissioner Widow, in short, we can say that no one was prosecuted for the misapplication of the $25 million. Civil society had nothing to say. No one was realistically prosecuted for the disappearance of the 16 billion Liberian dollars, part of which Ellen Saleh government was responsible for, and the We Are government responsible for part, part of it. No one responsible for the government taking money from partners joint covers, without the partners' consent, taking money from there, applying it to different activities. Civil society is in Liberia, but no one was prosecuted for that. In other countries, civil society take legal actions against people who are embezzling the people's money. People who, civil society organizations do that. They take the responsibility. They hire public defenders. To pursue legal cause on behalf of the people. But civil society is in Liberia, and all of these things are happening ironically. So are these crucial examples, are these critical examples of the pseudo nature of many of the civil society organizations in Liberia? Is that what you're saying? And if there are other, we talk about the financial aspect, the respect for human life, Okay, the responsibility of the government to protect lives and property. That's crucial.
Okay. So what goes around comes around. All right. Mafia inmates die. Up to today, there's nobody that the government have said this person was responsible for the death of mafia inmates. The auditors. Okay. Our Peters. All right. And the girl, Amma. Nobody has been arrested. The government has not brought anybody forward to say, look, this is a person that was arrested for this crime. Banti Insua, the auditor, nothing. Joy from Butu. All right. And civil society organizations go about like everything is normal. This is calm. You know, there's peace. Is that peace? No. Peace where if one man left his house and go and disappear, you call that peace? So what we have in Liberia, silently, is the absence of the sound of gun, but there's no peace. That is not peace. So the civil society institution needs to stand up to these issues. Let the government perform play its role. Let the government be taken to court to bring forward those people who are being arrested for the commission of this crime. I mean, it is one thing to enjoy the regalia of power, and but another thing to perform the task for which you have that power. What we see in Liberia is the enjoyment of the regalia of power, but the responsibility that comes with it is negated, and the people silent civil society institutions are very much silent in that particular situation. This is my own problem. All right. A mafia index can disappear. A Joy from Butu can die. It means anybody can die the same way. So civil society institutions need to stand up. I was just listening to the news yesterday. I heard about some law in Florida about election, about voting. Some law that signed by the governor with the issue of Georgia. We've seen multiple institutions are taking the governor to court, the Texas and the Florida state government to court, and so forth. In Liberia, you don't see that. This is a tragedy.
Commissioner, even businesses, private businesses, corporations are taking action because they see that their customers' rights being infringed on, so they're not taking it.
These are the issues.
Excellent, guys. Excellent, guys. But people will say that is based on the consciousness of the people.
That's it. So the situation we have, that is the situation, and there are a lot of reforms that need to be done. A lot of reforms. You know, the road of Sidon, when we come to the road of Sidon, this is it.
All right.
These are a lot of reforms.
And Joe, in all this, right, let's come to the people's direct representatives. Those the people chose to go in the house of politics to advocate for them, to stand for them, to make laws that meet their wishes and aspirations, that protect their interests and their rights. How are they in any way playing their role to sustain the democracy that we need? Commissioner Wheeler, this is the big one. Are the lawmakers, the legislators who represent the people, practicing democracy in the interest of the people? Are they making laws to guarantee the rights of the people? Or what are they up to? What are they busy doing?
And I would say that the legislature in Liberia, I can say with no doubt, there are a lot of evidence to suggest that the legislature, that those members, individuals who constitute the legislature, most of them are there for their personal interests. That is glaring. Even the people at the waterside market knows that. Sometimes you hear them saying that if people in the house get them for themselves. They say that. But there can be no building without a foundation. We need to look at the Constitution. When I talk about the need for reform in Liberia, there are a lot of things. If you talk about individuals who are supposed to constitute the legislature, the Senate, the House of Representatives, there's even a debate, there's a need for us to look at whether we really need a bicameral legislature. Do we need that? Those are issues that we need to talk about. Do we really need a bicameral legislature for Liberia? All right? Look at other countries in our region, other nations in our sub-region that have unicameral legislatures and how much they are producing in terms of legislative output. Compare it to our bicameral legislative system. The Republican form of government that the founders of Liberia, or those who declare Liberia a republic. So there is not a bad system, but it doesn't mean that we must carbon copy everything that is from the United States, because development is a contextual concept. Development is a contextual concept. It does not mean that since you took the government, you imitated the government, the system of government from America, mean everything that go away you must apply in Liberia, because that's a very different context. These are the issues that we must look at. So let's go to the law. An individual who has not been able to own $500 of his own money is elected to the legislature and is there to be able to pass law when you talk about millions of dollars. An individual who has never owned a bicycle, who is not able to build a house for himself or herself, become the legislator. So the Constitution has so many problems with it. We have a Constitution that has no educational requirement for anybody who wants to become president of Liberia. Those are the issues we have to look at. In the 21st century, you have a Constitution where the district commissioner who is appointed by the president can dismiss the parliament chief who is elected by the people. That's a problem with the Constitution. So there are a whole lot of issues. You talk about political parties. Talk about political parties. I can tell you. Now, if you go to Ghana, for an individual to be able to contest for the presidency, you must have 500,000 United States dollars non-refundable pay. All right? Before you talk about members of parliament. In Liberia, for the presidency is 2,500. For the vice president is 1,500. For the senator is $750. For the member of the house is 500. And a plant seller on the fee in Monrovia can have $400 or $500 to register. All right, educational requirement, there's nothing of that side that is needed. So at the end of the day, because this house in Liberia has no foundation, you have a house that is built with sand, with no pillow. That's the legislature. That's the legislature. You know, this is a situation. So what we have around here is that, you know, we need to be look at the reform system and so forth. So coming back to the question, whether the legislature is playing a role, no, because most of the people who constitute the legislature are not prepared to be members of the legislature. That is the problem we have in Liberia, and that is the bigger problem in this. As a result, we have an imperial presidency where the president is everything, and both the legislature and the judiciary pander to the president. That is the tragedy of our situation, which is very sad.
Joe, you want to chime in on the role of the legislature briefly here?
I would like to come in, and it's interesting, Commissioner. We don't touch on some of the important reasons why we're having the kind of situation we have right now with our democracy, as far as respecting the rule of law is concerned, and the legislature playing its role in that respect. You know, I'm one person who loves to talk about democracy a whole lot, especially with election in the middle of it. Democracy in reality has two branches: direct and indirect. And direct democracy is practiced by, for example, the British, where the people make their decision directly. In Liberia, we have to elect a group of people who make the decision on our behalf. These are the people Commissioner Widow was just talking about, describing their action. Whether or not we need a bicameral legislature, that can be a topic for another day. But no matter the nature of the legislature, whether it's unicameral, meaning just having a parliament like other countries he cited, like Ghana, you know, and doing well, it is also up to the people who are elected to represent the people, how they want to govern, how they want to lead. And part of that has to do with who they are. Yeah. Are they people with good standing in the society? Are they people with interest in the people in their various communities? Are they people with the kind of education and experience to make the laws, you know, that are appropriate for their people? That is the kind of conversation we need to be having about the role of the legislature, because the legislature is critical to improving governance in the country. They make the laws as much as the judiciary interprets, but they make the laws. And for elections, the legislature work directly with the Elections Commission to promulgate those statutes, which means those election laws, making sure that the whole of election management is something appropriate, something acceptable. Are they doing that effectively? No. I work for the Elections Commission, and my experience with interacting with the legislature in reforming the elections law was always like an uphill battle.
Sure.
So sometimes they got to take it from the personal perspective that you got to give them something upfront. You need to give them money upfront. Let me put it squarely. You need to give them money upfront to do their own job. You need to pay them outside of the structural arrangement, acceptable arrangement. You got to do that. And that is unacceptable, Anthony. And not just the elections management aspect of it. Other agencies of government, for them to function well, the legislature promulgates acts, statutes. Those agencies find it very difficult for those legislators to approve or to do those enactments for them to function properly. They have to go the extra mile to give them bribes to do a lot of things that they are not supposed to do, unacceptable things that they are not supposed to do. All of those things are getting the country toxic. The judicial system is not working because what the legislature does, you have nowhere to take it. What individual legislator does, you have nowhere to take it in terms of their actions. You don't. So you don't have things working effectively. The legislature is not up to the task. They're not doing it because the Constitution establishes that. Article 30A, that's all you have on what to qualify to be a representative or to be a senator, to become a senator. For the presidency, it's the same way as nothing. And some of them, even before they run for those offices to register, they have to go and credit $1,500 from somebody. They have to credit $500 from somebody to tell you that they have no money in society. And those kinds of people are easily elected in our country. What do you expect? You don't expect miracle. You don't plant orange and get pineapple. You don't do that. You don't do that. That's what happening. That's what happening in our country. So we need reform. I agree 100% that we need reform. And Anthony, you know that Gam is committed to this. You know, they just ended referendum. We talk about it. Prior to that, we talk about reforming the Constitution 100%. We talk about following the procedure to hold an acceptable referendum to adopt just a single attempt constitution, because the legislature is not to the tax. They're not performing well.
Joe, let me hold you there. Time is fast spent. Let's come to the role of NEC, and then let's look at SIDEN and it works in Liberia in election management and talking about development as well. You know, Commissioner Witter, the legislature, I get so tired, exhausted talking about the legislature and the legislators. I mean, just listen to what Joe just said. I mean, these people are asking for bribes, and these are the people we are relying on to hold cabinet ministers accountable. These are the people we are. And Milton Tiaje is another example of how corrupt that institution and the lawmakers are. This man is saying, look, in order for me to convince my colleagues to confirm you, you have to promise me that you're going to hire this number of people. I mean, come to think about lawmaker blatantly, violating the laws with both face. And so I get tired. I just get tired. But let's come to NEC. Joe, correct me on the numbers here. The last time I checked, the National Election Commission, when the December election were coming about, there was a budget I saw that was somewhere around 24 million or so. And then when President we are elected, new Court of Commissioners, that budget was reduced. They never got the money almost to the 11th hour. So the grassroots said, look, with this kind of trend, don't go ahead with the referendum. There was no symbols up to the 11th hour. Nothing. And they said they have to. Even the Supreme Court gave an opinion that was clear that, hey, don't go ahead. Institutions like Gam wrote the national election. We wrote the legislators. We follow up. Individual member got letter. And they said they won't. Apparently, they got that envelope Joe was talking about.
In fact,
so they have to fulfill.
Yeah. They told us to go to court. They say, y'all go to court. You guys are Liberians. Y'all go to court.
Yeah, that's what I said. Go to court. So, Commissioner Winston, let me bring you in here. The role of the NEC could not be cardinal in promoting this democracy that we want. And then later on, we'll talk about your institution, Sidon's work. Come in, sir.
Thank you so much, Sonny. And we spoke about the legislature. We spoke about civil society. The problem confronting civil society, resource mobilization, especially real civil society organization. The challenge of mobilizing resources to ensure their operation and the execution of their program. We talk about the legislature and the serious work that is associated with the legislature. Because the requirement of the legislature as per the Constitution is far detached from the reality on the ground, which is very sad and disappointing. Now we come to the issue of NEC. Election is a bridge between peace and chaos. I don't know, there have been some skirmishes concerning land in Liberia, but a major problem we have had in the country up to the Civil War is the question of state power. The institution that is supposed to play a crucial role in the supervising as to who acquires state power at what time. That institution needs to be an institution of transparency, and institutions of principle, and institutions of character. Because there is no small election. Josiah worked with the commission. There is no small election. Any election can spark violence that will lead to uncontrollable measure. Now, if that is the case, the Electoral Commission and the judiciary, they are crucial in the maintenance of peace. Let's come back to America. You were here, 2020. We around the world were all on the edge here as to what was evolving in this country, what was unfolding. The group that protected the democracy of this country, civil society, and the judiciary, the courts. The courts. If the courts in America had decided to become partisan, democracy was finished in this country. So let's go back to Liberia. The Electoral Commission is so crucial. And this is why if you go to the Abuja Accord, the Accra Comprehensive Peace Agreement, and the establishment of the National Election Commission as we know it today, and the composition of the men who went to the commission, these were men who had history of political struggle, people who were who had legal background, who were legal scholars at some level. And these were individuals that had character. Most of them. None. So the situation we have today, I think is a serious departure from that. Now, the Electoral Commission need to be there to play that role, to protect the collective interest, and to be above partisan consideration. Now, so what we have today is that there's a serious situation. There's a lot of evidence that suggests that the commission is negating such responsibility. And I think the committee need to buckle up to its responsibility and so forth. Now, let me deal with the issue of the budget. I was on the Elections Commission when the budget was formulated. I was on the commission when the budget was formulated. You know, the budget was formulated. The chairman of the commission today, the Honorable Director Brown Lasana, was the steering committee chairman for the senatorial election appointed by Chairman Kokoya. I, as commissioner in charge of finance, was in charge of overseeing the budgetary aspects so that whatever budget comes from the steering committee will pass through my office to take a look at it before it go to the board of commissioners. Commissioner Lasana presented to me a budget of 26 million US dollar. And I said million US dollar, you know, come for her. 26 million US dollar. You know? So the 26 million US dollar budget I presented to me, I went through the budget and I called Commissioner Lasana and I told her, this budget, with the way this government since its inception has been having difficulty with providing funding for elections, I think this particular budget would be unrealistic. In that budget was a component from the IT section of the commission, the data center, which was presided over by Mr. Claus Seyer, who is now a commissioner. Mr. Seyer was requesting $3.2 million for his section alone in that budget. He indicated that all computers and all servers in that particular section needed to be changed, replaced. I looked at that budget and the submission from the data center, and I concluded it was unrealistic. I went to work and I reduced the budget to a level that I believe will have conducted the election. And that budget dropped to $22 million, 22 point some more million, almost 23. That is the budget after my observation as a commissioner of finance that was submitted back to Director Brown for her to submit to the board. Director Brown attached communication to the $23 million budget and sent it to the chairman's office. It was based on that communication that Chairman Kokoya convened a board meeting and the board discussed the budget and there were questions to Director Brown. What happens if the government of Liberia indicate that it is not in a position to fund the $23 million that your committee is requesting to conduct the election? He said, but then the elections will not be conducted because that budget is a bare boom budget. It was based on that Chairman Kokoya attached communication and submitted the budget to the government, the Minister of Finance, the legislature, and so forth. At the budget negotiation, that budget was submitted in September 2019. There was nothing done by the government concerning that budget until December 2019. When one morning around 3 a.m., I was called by the Minister of Finance that there's a need for us to meet urgently for the discussion of the budget. I went to the office that morning, and at 9 o'clock, we were at the minister's office. The minister indicated that he had received some directive from the president relating to the budget, and so he decided for us to meet. For 3 days, we were negotiating. The budget was dropped. We are talking about the budget for the conduct of the voter registration update. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the budget for the conduct of the election and the budget for the referendum. That is the total budget I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. After discussion, the government concluded that it would be in the position of providing 70 million to conduct the election, $17 million. The UNDP was at that meeting. The U.S. Embassy, represented by USAID, was at that meeting at the Ministry of Finance. I represented the commission, and Director Brown was seated right on my left through the 3 days negotiation. At the end of the day, $14 million was agreed upon for the voter registration update and the election. How did we come to 14 million? The government of Liberia decided that it cannot provide funding for 30 days for the voter registration update.
Wow. From 22 to 17 and now 14.
14. The government said that, and then 3 million was to go for the referendum. So the government said they could not provide, the government said they could not provide 30-day funding. It could not provide funding for 30 days for registration. I indicated at that meeting that, look, the reason why within 30 days is because we want to use this particular update process to resolve the problem of individuals having cards in their hands but their name not on the roll. In this case, we want to open all the centers across the country, the more than 4,000 centers across the country. Those who have cards and those who don't have cards, they all should appear on the day of registration. If you come with a card, we'll check the roll. If your name is not in the roll, we will let you find out why you have a card and your name is not in the roll. If you are eligible, you will be included on the roll, and then you will go. If you have a card and your name is in the roll, we'll check you and you will go. That's what we wanted to do. The government said they don't have money for that. The days are too much. So we came from 30 days to 25 days. They said no. To 20 days, no.
What?
15 days, no. And the Minister of Finance told me that government cannot provide 1 cent above 10 days. And I told him 10 days for registration was unrealistic. Okay? At the end of the day, the government said they could only provide funding for 10 days. Those who don't go to the registration center to update their process in the 10 days, they are done.
And this is the guy, Commissioner, who could not even do map or exercise in 10 days. And he's telling because the map or exercise, basically, if you look at it, was just on the financial market. You're talking about election that covers the whole country.
Yeah. Minister Tue was very clear. So when I kept pushing, Minister Tue told me that I cannot cry more than a bereaved. I'm not the political parties. So the political parties should be left without responsibility. At the end of the day, we agree on 10 days, which are very inadequate for you to carry on any serious process relating to updating the voter roll. The 2017 voter roll was the most messy in the history of the commission. So we wanted to use the voter update exercise to correct the mistakes that were on that particular roll. All right? The government did not provide all the opportunity to do that. We ended on the 10 days. At the close of the meeting, when the UNDP mayor at the time, Parliament from Gambia, who has left Liberia now, and the minister left the room, the USA delegation called me. And look, there's a need for you to engage for the commission to call a meeting with the political parties and inform the parties about the decision from the government, which we did. When we called the political parties to the meeting, unfortunately and sadly, most of the parties that are of consequence did not attend the meeting. The Unity Party, the Liberty Party, the ALP, and the ANC, they all stay away from the meeting. Of course, the CDC, they didn't have interest to come, of course. So, so that was the situation. So the budget, when we left the commission, the budget for the conduct of the election, we were to have 10-day stationary process. All the centers across the country, 4,000 some of centers across Liberia were to be open for 10 days for the voter update process. So that budget was 14 million and 3 million for the referendum. 17 million. That's the budget we left. I was shocked that Commissioner Director Brown, who is now the chairman, who participated in all the process, who submitted the $26 million budget to me, who forwarded the $23 million budget after my work at the Commissioner on Finance level, who submitted a $23 million budget to the chairman, who sat in plenary and defended the $23 million budget to the extent that if that money is not provided by government, there's no way the election will be conducted. Commissioner Lassana brought the $14 million budget down from 17 million to something like 14 million. I was shocked.
Thank you.
How the Commissioner Lassana arrived at that, and why the Commissioner Lassana not provide all that information when we were at the commission, and she was an active participant at the budget negotiation, is something that baffled me up to today. Okay? Wow. And then Commissioner Lassana proceeded when the issue of mobile registration was defeated at the negotiation. The Americans, and when Parliament introduced the American and other people of government, including Jefferson Kochi, indicated that biometric or mobile registration will not be in the interest of the voter registration process, and the government should allow the NEC to take the lead. I'm surprised that Director Brown, after we left the commission and she became chairman, endorsed a mobile registration process that proved a failure in 2014 without any consultation with the political parties. I'm shocked up to that. Now, if the ECOWAS technical team had not come in to do facial recognition on a voter roll, to correct the mistakes of the voter update process, Commissioner Lassana, under her administration, carried on at the commission, where there were 9-year-old, 13-year-old that were all registered, multiple registration here and there. If the ECOWAS team had not come in Liberia to survey that road, that current road, we could end up in chaos in December. That's the situation with the commission. To the extent that the Supreme Court came out with regard to the referendum, the only symbols that were around Monrovia regarding to the referendum was the photo of the president around the town. In effect, the president's office became the civil education branch of the Election Commission. That's why it became. We issued a press release to that effect that the commission should not negate her responsibility to the executive. That there are no additional sufficient information related to the proposition that were to be put forward during the referendum. As such, the Election Commission should refrain from proceeding with the referendum. Stay the commission proceeded. To the extent that the Supreme Court came down with a decision which will provide any serious electoral commission that is above a partisan status the room to say, oh, because of this particular decision from the court, we cannot proceed. The commission still proceeded. That behavior by the commission tells so many, it proves to some level the partisan nature of the current commission. We as civil society organizations have to stand up to ensure that the Electoral Commission play a rightful role, because if what happened in Nipa County to either Gonglo Ware, what happened, relating to that election, where ballot boxes were opened 2 a.m. in the morning by election workers in the absence of other people or the other parties, with the professed intention of looking for referendum ballot. If those type of activities are not clear before 2023, we are in for trouble. Another issue is the issue of the remedial provision that was struck down by the Supreme Court in 2014 without any petition from any party. That provision, section 6.2(1) and 2 of the elections law was very clear that if a candidate is declared a winner, that candidate will be certificated. And any other person that object to the sitting, to the manner in which the election are conducted, that person will be right to go to court. We have the right to go to court. And at the end of the day, if it is concluded by the court that that person who filed the protest is the rightful winner of the election, the seated person that was announced by the commission will be withdrawn. That remainder provision was struck down by the Supreme Court in 2014 without petition from any agreed party. It is the basis for the multiplicity of complaints at the Election Commission relating to elections. And let me be very clear, because there's a floodgate, the floodgate for complaint have been allowed by that particular 2014 decision. There are people today who contest in election. They know they did not win. But once you file a complaint, it means the person who won cannot be seated. They will then go on to call the person who won a law. You have to pay me money to settle my expenses before I withdraw the court in the case from court in order for you to be seated. That is a situation that's obtaining. If that remedial provision is not restored until 2023, we are going to run into a constitutional crisis. This is a challenge we have. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Wheeler, wow, what an authority on the issue there. Thank you so very much for providing that information. Joe, time is our enemy. I'm enjoying the conversation, but I'll have to bring you in here. Commissioner Wheeler couldn't be so eloquent on the fact that these things were not practical. They were unrealistic. So please, if you can, in a minute, especially on the referendum, $3 million for a national referendum where you have multiple issues. Those were not candidates. Those were issues that needed symbols that the citizens needed to know. You didn't have time and you have only $3 million. Voter registration process only 10 days. Unrealistic. And yet they proceeded. Your comment. You work at this place too. You know the stuff. Go ahead.
Look, interestingly, Commissioner Widow and I work on so many issues in the electoral process in terms of improving the measures, improving the policies, and making sure that our democracy works better. I have so much respect for him. And his expert explanation is enough, like he said, to tell you the extent of the partisan nature of the current composition of the commission. And I've always said that the commission is not really the entire building or everybody who works there. It is actually those who are commissioners, the vice chair, and the chair. Commissioner Widow can confirm that. They constitute the commission. So when you refer to the commission, they are those people. So those people right now, Commissioner Widow has just explained the partisan nature of those people. And it is something sad because when you look at Liberia's standing in the sub-region as far as our electoral jurisdiction is concerned, Liberia was actually doing well in the very recent past that we were considered semi-democratic. Compared to other nations like Guinea, where Guinea is largely politically committed. You have many government agencies still delivering electoral activities. Cote d'Ivoire, for example, those are places we have served as experts, observers, and playing technical role in supporting their electoral processes. So it is sad that agencies of government like the Ministry of Finance will be dictating to the commission, and I know Commissioner Widow very well is standing up to people on those kind of matters, like he rightfully said, saying to the Minister of Finance that, no, this can't work, it's not possible, and that somebody who is not the chairperson of the commission, who worked with Commissioner Widow in deriving the budget and providing justification for the realistic budget for the holding of those two national events, will tender to the government, to the government and UNDP, to the extent that they will go ahead to hold mobile registration update. As soon as you can remember, to some extent during our conversation, I told you people that the mobile update was going to be a flop because of my experience, and I said that it was not going to work because it was not even needed. Look, let me tell you something. The credibility of any given election is contingent upon the credibility of the roll, the voters' roll. Because you need to have people who are eligible and people realistically who are registered to vote. If you have that roll mess up, then there's something wrong with your election. Right now, that roll that we have in Liberia, it is not credible to hold any election going forward. What we need to do with that roll is to change that roll. Is to do a fresh voter registration in that country. We need to go biometric, and we need to do it in the way that economically the people in the country can benefit. They need to hold a national a biometric system so that other institutions can benefit. The Election Commission will benefit from that biometric system. The Ministry of Finance with the passport issue will benefit from that. That's what working in other countries is possible. And we can do it in Liberia. So that's one of the issues I have with the electioneering process in the country. Until we can improve that, it's going to be difficult. That roll still has names of dead people on it. When we were at the commission, Commissioner Widow, Fromoya, and the rest of the people followed the law. They were able to do a facial recognition. They extracted more than 10,000 duplicate names. We put it on the CDs and sent it to the Ministry of Justice in keeping with laws to authorize the Ministry of Health to work with the commission to be able to extract those names, the names of deceased people on the list. All those things are to be worked up. There are issues with the commission. And it's still going to be difficult because you are having credibility issues with the commission. When President Weah constituted the commission, there were serious issues from the public. People raised concerns about the people who were nominated to the commission, their background, their standing in society. There is something that still has not been addressed. There was issue with the District 15 election, where the commission was accused, of doing wrongs in terms of making a determination of the winner. And the person who was responsible for that today is sitting as a commissioner. Somebody who was held responsible for that is sitting as a commissioner. The person was appointed by President. There is still a confidence issue with the board. And if you don't address the confidence issue that society has with the body that manages the election, that is a lasting conflict. It's an issue. to the enhancement of democracy in our country. But the sad thing is the political parties. The political parties are only arranged for taking political power, enriching themselves, and not addressing the issues in the country. The evidence here is the less interest they have in the management aspect of election. Before I left the election, I wrote a 9-page analysis of the things that were going wrong, and I published it.
Sure.
And I was invited by the head of the International Elections Observation and Monitoring Group in Liberia. And he made it clear to me and said, Josiah, everything you say in your article is true. Our frustration is the political parties who are the authorities to raise these issues. The political parties refuse. The political parties only canvass for vote at the disadvantage of the people. That's what happened in the December 8th election and referendum. Political parties did not have time for transparency in the processes leading to the holding of the election. Even if you called them and told them about it and to raise this issue, they did not have time. They could not even attend meetings to make sure that those issues are addressed. So political parties who are supposed to lead the people in making sure that we have transparent and credible elections, they are failures themselves on those issues. That's why we always have complicated issues associated with it. So going forward, if these fundamental issues are not addressed, 2023 is going to be a difficult process. And it could be something that we might again come back to be discussing in a regretful manner. And that's what we don't want to do. That's why we are raising these issues. That's why Gam is lifting the issue. That's why CIDEM is lifting the issue. That's why other institutions are lifting the issues.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for watching us here. This is Gam TV. Gam TV is the media platform of the Grassroots Alternative Movement. The Grassroots Alternative Movement is a pro-democracy and political advocacy organization. We are not a political party. We are a pressure group advocating for democracy issues of politics that have to do with the rights of the people. Welcome to the broadcast. And Gam TV is the media platform, again, of the Grassroots Alternative Movement. Our guest has been Mr. Jonathan K. Weeder. He has been a commissioner at the National Election Commission. He's an expert in electioneering. We are so happy to have him. And my co-host is a leader at the Grassroots Alternative Movement, Mr. Josiah Jokai Jr. He is the chair for the Grassroots dimension of the Grassroots Alternative Movement. I don't know why they call me CSO, but I'm here also and trying to be part of the conversation. Commissioner, we don't let come to you again on CIDEM and its works in Liberia. Our understanding is that CIDEM is the Center for Development and Election Management. You are the Deputy Director General for Administration and Finance. We also know that the center is a national civil society organization established in mid of 2019, initially known as the Edward Wilmot Bladden Center for Research and Development. This is a very good institution. So talk to us. You established this. What work have you been doing, and what is the goal of your institution? How are you trying to help, to sustain the democracy so that we can have a country?
Thank you. So the CIDEM came about because we, as former election workers, electoral managers of Liberia, we decided the work to perfect our democratic system does not end with our departure from the commission. We think the work is a continuing process, and there's a need to perpetuate our efforts. We decided as Liberian former electoral workers, we decided to get together to organize CIDEM. We want to enhance the electoral process in the country, making it transparent, making it possible, putting it at a level that will serve the collective interest of the people. We want to do that by intensifying civil education, institutionalizing it, so that from time to time, we don't have to be a periodic process. It should continue during election and during non-election electoral period. So we want to institutionalize civil education. We want to also make sure that we develop the capacity to observe elections, that we don't want to depend on foreign actors to observe our elections. Because usually when foreign actors go to observe the election, they remain at the area that is urbanized.
And some of them
because
stay in the hotels, Commissioner. They stay in the hotel, they're
Most of
drinking
them stay in the
beer.
hotel. And at the end of the report day, after staying in the hotel, they issue report that speak about everything across the country. We have problem with that. So what we decided to do was we established a Center for Development Election Management, so that we would be on the ground at all the polling centers across the country to monitor the election, bring time in a time fashion, get results, realistic results from the various centers, and get them out of headquarters and make them available to the people of the country. That's what we want to do, election observation. And then we want to help working with international partners in a way that we can build the capacity of the commission. Number one, you talk about the issue of our procurement. You talk about the issue of our fleet management. You talk about the issue of the data center. You talk about the building the capacity of individuals who work at the commission. And of course, looking at the law, engaging in reform. Now, the law that gives the president the right to appoint the commissioners at all times, whether that law should remain as it is or whether there should be inserted in a vetting process that will look at the character of those who are appointed, the qualification of those who have appointed, and the background of those who are being appointed to seek the collective interest and to ensure that the Electoral Commission live up to its mandate. Those are the issues we want to pursue at the level of citizen. We've been going forward. We have on March 17th there was a press conference. In the press conference, we have there so many issues. There's a report in the work following the certification of those who won the election, all of them, including Mr. Samuka, who the certification process is here back and forth. That will issue a comprehensive report, some that were sent to our international partners and so forth, relating to how we see the electoral process in Liberia. So what we want to do is to help from the level of the private sector, from the level of civil society, to assist with the electoral process so that it will be responsive to the needs of the country. That was them is good. And we are pleased with what we are doing. The only obstacle we have in this particular march is the mobilization of resources. And this is why we are here. One of the reasons for me coming to the United States is to engage actors in the democratic arena in order for them to be able to assist with resources in order to carry on the crucial tasks as we embark on the road to 2023.
Thank you so very much, Commissioner Widow. And I like the fact that you are trying to look for funding somewhere else, because earlier, during the discussion, civil society institutions, they're not getting the funding, so now they have to tailor their message in favor of the government to get less funding to do their. So instead of serving the people, they are serving the government. We don't want your institution, to fall in that trap, because what's the essence of your work? To make sure the democracy is sustained and that the people are in the center of it. But if your funding is coming from the pocket of the government, then you find yourself in the government pocket. We have too many of those institutions. We don't want your institution to be that. But something I want to bring to your attention here, what we know that is common in our society is we tend not to respect our own. This is an institution established by Liberians, Liberian professionals, people who have expertise in electioneering. You are right there. You know the road to Grand Cru, you know the road to Bokatu. But sometimes what we see is our government, the governors, would rather give that responsibility to somebody from Europe who does not even understand the local vernacular, who has no understanding of the culture whatsoever, to carry on election monitoring when you are there to serve your country. Talk to me. Have you started seeing this kind of ugly thing showing a face in your face too?
Thank you so much. You see that every day. You got individuals that the state use resources to train. Josiah, he was with me 2012 when we went to Ghana, representing the ECOWAS mission relating to the Ghanaians election. We went there as part of a group that were even advising Ghanaian political parties as to how to proceed. He was part of that delegation. Now, they still spend money to train individuals. Okay, if today we are not at the commission, that does not mean the training we have ends. We think we are still resourceful. We have the knowledge, that will be able to help with the process. But in our country, that is very sad. We don't believe in ourselves. And to quote Colin Powell, no society can progress if it does not believe in yourself.
Yes.
So you have to believe in yourself.
Certainly.
All right? What you will do for yourself, nobody will do for you. Nobody will love you more than the way you love yourself. Unfortunately, we believe not in ourselves in the country, we believe in others. That's another challenge facing our country. We need conscientization that, look, it is fundamental that we believe in ourselves and we have to make progress. Now, this is the issue. I'm doing my first assignment at the commission. The first 2 counties they sent me to were the southeastern counties of Maryland and Grand Crew. In fact, that was the introduction area. And the new commissioner, because our commissioner number 7, the last commissioner in the place there, they sent me to Grand Crew. I had to walk to Nifu. I
know Nifu. Not far from Sastown.
I walked to Niplepo, to Sastown.
Wow.
I spent over 2 weeks in that place. Yeah. And when people used to refer to Grand Crew at the time, I've not been there for some time. I said,
Walking County. Walking County. That's my county.
Grand Walking County.
Yeah.
So that was my baptism. So I know those areas. And then my next assignment was, again, the expansion to the 3 southeastern counties, which was Maryland, which was River G, Grand Jide, and Sino. I spent years in those areas. So if you talk about knowing the area and so forth, there are very few people who will be able to lecture me about the terrain of that place, the nature of how people relate to political issues and so forth, for the years that I spent in working with them. But the solution to our problem and the challenge we are confronted with, the solution is to believe in ourselves. The challenge is that currently we don't believe in ourselves, and there's a need to give focus to our. This is something we fought for on the commission. Just I know that. One of my arguments, in fact, I was the international partner that were at the commission. They said I was a radical fellow. Some of them even said that I don't like white people. That's not the case. But I was a man who was always pushing for consultants, Liberian consultants, to be given priority. Consultants in the legal section, Councillor Gonglo, and Bian Howard today, who's a legislator, was brought in. These were the people that were brought as consultants. But people wanted us to allow Shaba from Georgia.
Georgia.
And other people from Kenya and other people to come in a place and play the role that we have qualified people in Liberia to play. And that was my problem. To the extent that most of the international actors in the country were misinformed by my detractors that I'm anti-white people. So I'm not anti-white people. But I think Liberia should be given the preference because no other country we can be citizens beside our country. The place where we are citizens, where we were born, is that country. So I think when we are there, we should be given the preference to perform, especially when we have people who are qualified to perform tasks. That's what we do.
Joe?
Thank you so much, Commissioner Wider. This has been a healthy conversation. Some aspects very, very telling, very revealing, especially the aspects on how the December 8th election and referendum budget was carved and how it all ended up in the hands of the person who later became your colleague, who later became the chairperson of the commission and ran contrary to all of the decisions and the realities. That is something that speaks volumes in terms of where we are headed as far as 2023 is concerned. Our consolation, for example, is the kind of conversation we are having now. I think this is practical. This is the way to go about it, unearthing the issues and discussing, a common front to dealing with those issues. That signifies who we are and how we intend to really believe in ourselves to deal with the issues, using your own quote from Colin Powell. Commissioner Wider, it's good that you are in the U.S. and you are trying to lay the groundwork for sourcing funds to support the activities of CIDEM. Do you care to tell us What are now their prospects in the process?
We think there's a prospect. We are talking to institutions that are likely to receive the award for the 5-year election project from the U.S. government to use it.
Okay.
We are in discussions with those with some of those institutions. There are indications that with our expertise, after having series of meetings with them, series of communications, that they will be willing to talk to us, to deal with us when they get on the ground. Communication link between them and us is open. We look forward that by the close of June, there may be an exploratory delegation from some of those institutions in Monrovia. And I believe they will be visiting the Sweden office upon their arrival, where if all goes well, there will be a partnership agreement signed with them so that we can be key implementers of their project across the country. We look forward to that. If that succeeds, I think it will be a milestone in the work in association with you, the grassroots alternative movement, and other conscious groups in Liberia, including, of course, student grouping in the country that are conscious, that want to keep the country safe, stable, democratic, so that at the end of the day, we all will benefit from the gains. We will ensure that we have links. We are in coalition with those groups across the country so that we will have our own monitors and election observers at every inch of the country. We'll not be talking about, oh, no car can go here, don't say that. Our people are there, we will walk to reach them. That's what we intend to do. Thank you.
Well, Commissioner Widow, just before we get to you for your last word, I was really going to say I'm doubtful about you accessing the U.S. government funding through USAID because of USAID traditional way of working with their traditional partners like AFES, the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, and other groups through which they can channel their funding. But my hope is that you guys are experienced people whom they have worked with. You say have worked with somebody like you for about 16 years, worked with Fromoyan for those years, Francis Johnson, Maurice Allison, and the rest of the group. You are all election administrators, managers, and outstanding Liberians whom they trust so much. That is my consolation. I would say that GAME is wishing you well in this endeavor. We also look forward to partnering with CIDEM. We've discussed that over and over, and we will look forward to such partnership in making sure that democracy works in our country, because collectively we all do understand and believe that there's a possibility that we can make it work. From my end, you know, I just want to say thank you for the invitation. I know Ansoni is going to get to you on the last word, but in my capacity as the executive chair of the grassroots alternative movement in the diaspora, I want to say thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And the conversation here was very, very fruitful, meaningful. I'm sure our viewers enjoy it, and there were many takeaways. Thank you so much, Commissioner Widow, and I wish you all the best during your stay in the U.S.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you.
Tony?
Yeah, Commissioner Widow, we had a good conversation with you. There are many things that I have learned. Joe said it, and I think our audience will agree. There are so many takeaways from this discussion. You have given us almost 1 hour and 45 minutes of your time. That is significant time. It shows how committed you are to promoting democracy in Liberia. We appreciate that. We know you are a busy man, but we have to take leave of you now. What do you have to share with the Liberian people like me concerned about our democracy? We want it to grow. We want it to flourish. It will not be perfect, but we want it to be better and stronger so that we can be respected, just as we seem to be respecting our neighbors or our friends in the sub-region like Ghana. We want to be respected, and it will start with peace. Peace cannot happen in the absence of a democracy that works for the people. So what do you have to say to us who are in despair?
Thank you so much. My first message go to the political parties in Liberia. I'm a former political party chairman. Before I went to the Elections Commission, I was active, as I stated, in student politics. And then when I left school, I was a political party chairman before I went to the Elections Commission. We know there are challenges confronting the administration of political parties in Liberia. If you look at the the equation, the democratic equation, constituency plus resources equal power. That they equate the power equation. But the elements in that particular equation, the questions of constituents and resources and finance, in the United States and other developed countries, constituency is more important because when you have constituency, you have resources. The constituency will bring the resources. In Liberia, resources is more important than the constituency because the people even come to the political party office to look for resources to pay their way. Now, so in such a situation, if you are a political party administrator in Liberia, it is very difficult because your number one focus has to be on the issue of looking for resources or sourcing funding. We know there are challenges. Notwithstanding, political actors have to be to the task. When we're in the Liberian National Union, we were a victim. We were, a victim of the same issue of resource availability that confronting all the political parties. But we took stand. We informed the Taylor government that it was wrong for you to be talking about a national conference that you are going to waste money on. You should be using that money to implement your platform. There were very few parties in Liberia at the time that were prepared to say. Even the late Judy Bryan called me and told me I was taking risk. At the time, he was chairman of LAP. Okay? So then we go back to the issue of the insurgency in Sierra Leone under Taylor. We took stand. We wrote Taylor and we publicized that the government should forget about the insurgency, supporting the insurgency in Sierra Leone. There are so many issues in Liberia that need to be addressed. When political parties are in Liberia and because of resource limitation and so forth, and become very docile and become silent, they undermine the growth of our democracy. That's my message. The parties have to be active. They have to be clear. They have to be there. No issue should escape their notice. No issue to escape comment from them. They should be able to work through political actions and so forth to make sure that the government in power know there's an opposition. Political parties are government in waiting. So you have to work to convince people that the day you are in power, you will seek the welfare of the people. That's my message. Then to civil society, those who are partnering to the state, at the end of the day, you crumble along with the state, with that particular stature of the state. And at the end of the day, your legacy will become that of Nelke. So many groups are metamorphosed in Liberia, and today they are history because of the role they play from one time to another in the civil society. And then to the people of our country, we have to stand up and open our eyes. Now all that glitter is gold. People need to know that. As I said, Abraham Lincoln, all men can withstand adversity. But if you want to know the true character of a man, give him power. Wow. I expect by now the Liberian people should know who the agitators were yesterday for good governance, for corruption-free society, for the rule of law. But now they should have an idea who the people are. Because power will unmask you. The power will unmask you and will show your real self. When men are seeking power, they can pretend. But once you get power, power is going to reveal you. So I think today the Liberian people have seen, and we will have to emulate those who are in authority to ensure that that the interest of the state is paramount, and that Liberia is the only country that we have, and that they should govern the country like people who were given power by the people, not with a conqueror mentality that what is obtaining now. Governing a state that will capture on the battlefield. I want to say that in Liberia we have to do more. Many countries are here. I was in Ghana this few days on my way to the States. Ghana, few years ago, where people used to stand in queue to buy sugar.
Sugar.
You'll be shocked if you enter Ghana. You'll be shocked. It's a middle-level economy. You'll be shocked about what is obtained in Ghana. We can do better, but we have to be clear. We cannot take our right and give it to people and pretend that when we are silent, everything going to work to perfection. We have to be active and protect the interests of our country and love our country. Thank you ever so much. That's my message.
Wow, Commissioner Wheeler, I was tempting to add something, but there's nothing to add. You said it so brilliantly, so eloquently, and with wisdom. And if anybody have 2 ears, let them hear, and let them hear now. Wow. He says something. All men can stand adversity, but give them power, and then you will see. I paraphrase that and say, well, any man may be able to resist temptation, but give them power and see whether their hands will not be caught in the cookie's jar. I paraphrase that to say, do you want to know who a greedy man is? Then give one power, you will know whether that one is greedy. Do we have people in government today that are greedy, who yesterday were portraying themselves as people who are for the people? Well, I will leave it there. I will show you something. The Grassroots Alternative Movement holds its annual program, comes May 22nd, 2021 on Saturday, and the program starts at 11 o'clock a.m. the U.S. time, and that will be 3 p.m. Liberia time or GMT. All right, so we are inviting the entire public. You have to be part of an institution. We can't do it individually, but we can do it collectively because there is strength in unity, it is said. So please, the Grassroots Alternative Movement is inviting you. If you have any question whatsoever, there's a phone number there you can call. But you can also go to our website that you see right there at the bottom on the right, www.gameliberia.org. Some of your questions will also be answered. So please, our annual program, we are inviting you. This is the flyer. It's all over. If you run into this on our Facebook page, please share it with somebody and invite somebody. The Grassroots Alternative Movement hosts its annual program 2020, and the entire public is invited. Folks, we want to say thank you so very much for coming to our broadcast here at Gam TV. We will now close with this song, and we are saying to you, bye-bye. Commissioner Wheeler, thank you so very much.